Hey guys, welcome back to more stories about real-life workplace chaos. The kind where one arrogant decision can burn an entire business to the ground. And trust me, some people really think cooking is just flipping meat on a grill, right up until their restaurant collapses in front of them. Yeah, that actually happened. This woman looked me dead in the eye, cut my pay down to basically nothing, then smirked and said, "If you think you're worth more, quit." 2 hours later, the entire kitchen walked out. For weeks later, the bank took the building. Let me back up a sec. I've been cooking since I was 16 years old, back when most of my friends were learning how to drive and I was already standing in kitchens hot enough to melt your soul. This business isn't glamorous like TV makes it look. Your back hurts constantly. Your hands are covered in burns, you miss holidays, birthdays, weekends. All of it. But there's something addictive about the chaos, you know what I mean? The sound of tickets printing non-stop, pans slamming against burners, people yelling behind. Every 5 seconds, it becomes part of your blood. For 6 years, I ran the kitchen at a place called Harbor House. It wasn't some Michelin star restaurant, but it wasn't a dump either. We did upscale comfort food, 12-hour braised short ribs, handmade pasta every morning, seafood specials that sold out before 8 o'clock on weekends. We had regulars who trusted us so much they didn't even look at the menu anymore. They'd just sit down and say, "Bring me whatever's good tonight." The old owner, Dennis, understood restaurants. That's important. He stayed out of the kitchen, drank wine at the bar, and let me do my job. As long as the food stayed good and the numbers made sense, he was happy. He paid me well enough to cover my mortgage and keep my beat-up truck alive. But more than that, he respected me. And I did way more than cook. I fixed equipment when it broke because calling repair guys cost too much. I negotiated with suppliers. I handled scheduling, health inspections, inventory, staffing problems, customer complaints. Hell, half the time I felt like a therapist for the servers. And my kitchen crew? We were like a family. There was Marcus on grill, a college kid who could cook a perfect steak without even using a thermometer. Leo was my sous chef, insanely talented but nervous about everything. Walter handled prep, slow as hell, but never wrong once in his life. And then there was Nate in the dish pit, probably the hardest working guy I've ever met. Kid had some learning disabilities and every other job treated him like garbage. But in our kitchen, he mattered. During dinner rush, we moved like a machine. I'd hold out my hand and Leo already knew which pan I needed. Marcus could tell exactly when fries needed to drop without me saying a word. It was beautiful when it worked. Then Dennis retired. He sold the restaurant to a woman named Claire. And man, Claire walked into that building like she was taking over a Fortune 500 company. White blazer, heels, clipboard in hand, looking around at the kitchen like she just entered a war zone. She had zero restaurant experience. But she talked like one of those people who watched 3 cooking shows and suddenly thought they understood hospitality. The first week was fine. Then the improvements started. First, she switched our coffee supplier because she found cheaper beans. The old coffee was locally roasted and customers loved it. The new stuff tasted like burnt dirt. People complained immediately. And Claire actually told the servers to describe it as a premium bold blend. Then she came after the kitchen. One afternoon I was trimming a beef loin, cutting off the silver skin and fat that can't be served, and she stopped beside me staring at the scraps. "Why are you throwing that away?" she asked. "It's silver skin," I explained. "You can't eat it. It's chewy, it ruins grinders, and customers will spit it out." She crossed her arms and said, "In my previous industry, we utilized 100% of our assets." I looked at her for a second and said, "This is beef, not spreadsheets." Yeah. She never forgave me for that line. After that, she watched everything. Why did we need for different salts? Why simmer stock for 8 hours instead of using cubes? Why buy local produce when frozen was cheaper? I kept trying to explain that good food takes time, skill, and quality ingredients. But Claire treated quality like a budgeting problem. Then she started destroying the culture of the place. She fired the cleaning crew and made servers scrub toilets after closing. 2 waitresses quit on the spot. She bought produce so cheap it looked half dead before it even arrived. The dishwasher broke, and she refused to repair it because it wasn't in this month's budget. So I fixed it myself at midnight using spare parts from my garage because Nate was drowning back there trying to keep up. Meanwhile, online reviews started tanking. We dropped from nearly 5 stars to barely over 3 in less than 2 months. Customers said the food tasted different. Service felt weird. The place had bad energy. One review literally said the restaurant felt sad. Claire blamed the staff for all of it. Then came the day everything exploded. Thursday afternoon, after a slow lunch rush, she called me into her office. No chair offered. No small talk. Just slid a paper across the desk. At first I honestly thought I was reading it wrong. She'd gutted my pay. No bonuses. No benefits. No profit share. If I calculated the hourly rate, I'd be making less than I did as a teenager. I looked at her and asked if she was serious. And that's when she said the sentence I'll probably remember forever. Cooking is unskilled labor. Said I wasn't management. I was just a pair of hands standing over a stove. I could literally hear my heartbeat in my ears. 6 years of keeping that place alive through snowstorms, equipment failures, impossible dinner rushes. And this woman was telling me I was worthless. Then she leaned back in her chair with this smug little smile and said, "Take it or leave it." Behind her was one of those motivational posters that said teamwork makes the dream work, and I swear I almost laughed. I asked her, "Are you daring me to quit?" She replied, "I'm telling you your market value." The room went dead silent for a second. Then I nodded. "Okay." She thought I was agreeing. Instead I said, "Okay, quit." Her expression completely froze. "Then leave. Right now." "Right now?" I asked. "Dinner service starts in an hour. We're fully booked tonight." She rolled her eyes and said, "I can cook steak. It's not rocket science." Honestly, that was the moment I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. I dropped my keys on her desk and walked back into the kitchen. The smell of garlic and rosemary hit me the second I walked in, and for a second it genuinely hurt because that kitchen had been my home for years. I gathered everyone together and told them what happened. Nobody spoke at first. Then Leo untied his apron and tossed it onto the prep table. "If you're gone, I'm gone." Marcus followed immediately. Walter didn't even say anything. He just rolled up his knives and headed for the back door like some old cowboy in a movie. Nate looked panicked because he needed the paycheck. So I told him a buddy of mine had landscaping work starting the next morning that paid better anyway. His face lit up instantly. Within 5 minutes, the entire kitchen staff was gone. Dinner service hadn't even started yet. We walked outside just as Claire spotted us through the front window. She came charging out the door looking completely frantic. "You can't leave," she screamed. Leo laughed and said, "Looks like we just did." She started yelling that it was illegal, that we were sabotaging her. I leaned against my truck and said, "Nope, just the free market. Remember? Unskilled labor." Then we drove across the street to a dive bar and ordered beers. That's when the real show started. By 5:30, customers filled the restaurant. And around 6:40, Claire appeared in the dining room wearing an apron over her expensive blazer, covered in flour for absolutely no reason. sprinting back and forth like a raccoon trapped in a garage. Claire threw ribeyes onto the grill without turning the gas on first. Then she tried finishing them in the pizza oven and turned $40 steaks into gray hockey pucks. She dumped pasta into cold water and cranked the heat up, turning it into a giant sticky blob. Somehow she even burned soup. I still don't understand how you burn soup. But the best part? An old regular named Mr. Callahan stood up in the middle of the dining room and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "If the entire staff quit at once, it's probably your fault." The whole room went silent. Then he dropped his napkin on the table and walked out with his entire family. That one hit her hard. By 8 o'clock, Harbor House shut down for the night. The next morning, Claire posted a sign saying closed for renovations. Everybody knew that was nonsense. She tried hiring replacement cooks, but restaurant people talk fast. Nobody reputable wanted anything to do with her place anymore. Meanwhile, I called Vincent, the owner of an Italian restaurant down the road who'd been trying to hire me for years. I told him, "I come with my whole crew." He said, "Done." 2 weeks later, we reopened together. First thing I put on the menu? The original short ribs. I posted online, "The short ribs are back." The response was insane. Lines out the door opening night. Regulars from Harbor House came flooding in. Mr. Callahan showed up, shook my hand, and said, "Good, that other place smells like sadness now." Meanwhile, Harbor House completely fell apart. Health inspectors showed up after an anonymous complaint about refrigeration issues. And let's just say the walk-in cooler was sitting at dangerous temperatures. Raw chicken stored next to salad greens. Cross-contamination everywhere. The place got slapped with violations immediately. About 3 months later, Claire pulled up behind Vincent's restaurant in a white BMW. She looked exhausted, wrinkled clothes, messy hair, eyes red like she hadn't slept in days. "Can we talk?" she asked quietly. I wiped my hands on a towel and said, "Careful, this unskilled labor gets busy." She actually flinched. Then she admitted the new staff was terrible, money was disappearing, customers hated the food, and she wanted me back. She offered my old salary back plus another 20% if I returned with my team. I looked past her into the kitchen. Leo was laughing with Vincent about soccer. Nate was eating family meal at the prep table. Everybody looked relaxed, respected, happy. Then I looked back at her. "You said anyone could do this." She nodded slowly. I was wrong. And for the first time, I think she actually meant it. But by then, it didn't matter anymore. I told her, "You didn't lose your restaurant because of food. You lost it the second you decided the people doing the work didn't matter." She stood there silently for a few seconds, then walked back to her car and drove away. A few weeks later, the bank foreclosed on the building. And honestly, sometimes I still drive past that empty restaurant. Dusty windows, dead parking lot, sign ripped off the wall. Funny thing is, Claire thought she was saving money by cutting my pay. Instead, she destroyed an entire business trying to prove skilled workers were replaceable. So yeah, if you ever think chefs are just people standing around cooking, try surviving a Friday night dinner rush yourself. Make it 2 hours without crying and then we'll talk. But what do you guys think? Did Claire deserve everything that happened? Or was the kitchen crew wrong for walking out right before dinner service? If you were in my position, would you have stayed and tried to save the restaurant? Or walked too? Let me know in the comments. I want to hear both sides of this one.